I want to just share with you the 4 key principles, really, of love where you live, and then really dig into a couple of them. The 4 key principles, and I'll break them down all a little bit more as I talk, but the 4 key principles I want to think about are prayer, practice, proclamation, and purposeful invitation. Now, I think it's important when we think about partnership to realize that this is at the heart of the Bible. It's entirely biblical. We worship a God who lives in perfect partnership and perfect community with himself as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And we know that we are designed in his image, and therefore we come into our fulfillment when we're actually able to have meaningful partnership. We also know that we're humans and we mess up big style, and we have to work hard to actually maintain those partnerships. But we're reminded in the Bible, in Psalm 133, that famous passage where it says, "How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. It's like precious oil poured on the head, running down on the beard, running down on Aaron's beard, down on the collar of his robe, as it is if the dew of Hermon were falling on Mount Zion. For there the Lord bestows his blessings, even life evermore." The reason that we should want to strive for partnership, for unity, is because when we do that, God is commanded to bring a blessing. And it's a blessing that flows not just out onto us, but into our communities as well. So we want that commanded blessing. So I want to break down what these things look like, what the 4 principles look like. First of all, I want to talk to you about prayer. Prayer is fundamental to all that we're doing as a festival, right across the piece, right across every aspect of the festival. And it's key to what we're doing when we think about love where you live. Now, one of the things that we've done is we developed we've partnered with an app that helps us to do this. It's called the Oikos Outreach app. And I just want to show you a short film so you can see how it works. Check this out. What a great and powerful way to actually underpin every project with prayer. You saw the film of the project that we did in Wythenshawe, where before we did it, we went out and we prayed for every street in Wythenshawe. We're now trying to do the same right across Greater Manchester. Be part of it, download that app, and we begin to build community through that by encouraging you to actually do it at least with one other person, with a buddy. As Deborah says, I was out yesterday with our CEO, Andy Hawthorne, and we were praying together, encouraging each other on, spurring one another, encouraging us just to do a bit more and to go a little bit deeper. Think about what it looks like to pray as a group, to pray as a church for this project, to pray for your community. Prayer walk your community as a church. It's absolutely life-changing not just for your community, but also for you. I want you to think about this other aspect, which is called proclamation. When we think about actually doing the biggest festival that the Northwest has seen for a generation, we don't just want people to somehow stumble across the fact that we're Christians. We don't just want that idea that maybe they see some sort of ready brick radiance coming off us and they think, oh, there's something different about you. No, we need to be ready to always share the reason that we've got in our hearts. So are we going to intentionally tell people about Jesus? You saw on that film earlier that as part of the project, we had these meaningful encounters where we could share the gospel with people. What does that look like for for your project. Now, it's going to look different across all the different projects. It'll look different when you think about the style of church you are, the sort of person you are. But we want everybody to think about what that proclamation piece looks like. There's actually the practice, the actual act of doing social action or acts of kindness. And my friend Neil's going to be talking to us a little bit later about how we discover what our communities would want to say about that. But we want to think about what is a meaningful project for your local community. And I'm going to be sharing a little bit, and this is the heart of what I want to share about, is how we engage other key stakeholders in what our practice might be. I want to encourage you with a verse from Jeremiah 29. And I know that if you're in church, you already think you know the verse I'm going to share. Well, it's not that one. It's a different one. It's verse 7. It says this: "Also, seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper." We need to be people who are praying for the prosperity of our cities, praying the very best blessing over them, because it's in our best interest. That's what the Bible tells us. When the city prospers, the church prospers as well. I want you to realize, when you think about partnership, this very key thing. The church is good news. It doesn't just have the good news, it is good news. There is a church at the heart of every community. Now, you might think, well, that's obvious, but I want to tell you, in my experience of partnering with local authorities, with the police, with the fire brigade, with the ambulance service, with other community partners, they've often not thought about that in the center of pretty much every community is a church or multiple churches that have got resources, they've got people, they've got pounds, and they've got buildings that actually can be a blessing to that community. We just need to tell people about it. You should also remember that when you're speaking to other key stakeholders, like I say, like the local authority, the police, the fire brigade, neighbourhood management, others, they're all under-resourced. They've all got fewer pounds to do the same amount of work or more work than they had a decade ago. So that they're desperately trying to deliver meaningful projects to their citizens and to their customers, and they have less resources to do it. And so that when you go along with good heart and good intent, they very often want to partner with you, because you effectively add capacity. You bring resource to the table that without you, they wouldn't have. So if you approach them right, you are indeed highly likely not just to be a blessing to them, but also to be a welcome person around the table. Now, generally, when I've run projects like this, I've taken a similar approach on all of them. I've approached the potential partner, and I've essentially said, look, this is what our hope and thought is. This is what we want to do. And I talk about the big vision. So I would, in this case, I'd tell them about Festival of Manchester. I'd tell them all the different aspects of it, how it's going to impact the city. And then I'd say, however, we want to do something locally. And I break it down. I might say, for instance, hey, listen, I'm going to be gathering 50 people, and we've got 6 hours available on one Saturday. If you had 50 people available for 6 hours, what would you do? What would be helpful to you? What is the thing that you'd like to be done that's not going to get done in a timely manner unless we help you out? Now, very often, they'll have a list. They'll be like, oh, we need this riverbank clearing, or we want this litter pick, or can you help us to dig a community garden that we promised ages ago to do, or whatever it is. They immediately begin to think what it is. Or maybe I remember talking to South Wales Police once, and they realised that this area was just so run down with broken bottles and graffiti. They said, you know what, if you could clear that area, we just know that crime would be reduced. But, you know, we're police, we can't do that. And we said, we can get it done. And suddenly, we're right at the table with these people. Now, I think it's also worth doing a little bit of research, not just because you know what you want to get out of this, but I want you to think about this. I want you to link what you want to what they have already promised. So, to give you an example, Greater Manchester Unitary Authority, this is their vision. They say, we want Greater Manchester to be a place where everyone can live a good life, growing up, getting on and growing old in a greener, fairer, more prosperous city region. So, if I was going to do a litter pick, one of the things I would say is, hey, as Greater Manchester, I know that you want this place to be a greener place. We can help with that. We could do a litter pick. Now, how can we partner on that? If I run free five-a-side football competition for young people, I know that it's giving access to sport and recreation and leisure, perhaps to people who couldn't afford to do that for themselves. I sat in a meeting once with South Wales Police and they were talking about the number of ASBOs they'd issued, and almost all the ASBOs were as a result of older people complaining about young people just hanging out. And I said, what if we did a project then where all those young people actually went and cut the lawns of all the older people, where the older people would realize that these young people are not a nuisance, but in fact could be a blessing. Well, we did that. And as a result of that, we saw that intergenerational suspicion go down because we'd partner with them to think about what will be helpful to that community. I want to say this. When you go into these partnership meetings, you're not mostly going in to ask for permission. You see, almost certainly most of the stuff that you're going to do is not in the control of the local authority or the police or the fire service or the neighbourhood management or whoever it is. They just happen to be working the same spaces. In most cases, will have a complete right to do what you want to do. So you're not asking for their permission. You're asking to develop partnership. You want to say to them, look, you know, we just want to do this. We want to be a blessing. But we think it'd be so much better if the project is co-owned. One of the ways I found to develop partnership is to ask them for resources. To say, hey, listen, if we're going to do a litter pick, can you provide us with the litter pickers? Can you provide us with the bags? Is it possible to get your refuse collectors to actually pick up the stuff that we've dropped off? To begin to think, if you want us to clear this graffiti, do you have paint? Do you have brushes? Maybe sometimes the best thing that they can do to partner with you, and they want to do, is sometimes give you money. And we very often shy away from that because we think as churches, do you know what, we just want to bless them. But let me tell you this, when people give you resources, they have to be accountable for those resources. And that's where partnership becomes meaningful. See, if they give you $5,000, they have to know that you spent the $5,000 well. And that develops strong and meaningful partnership. Now, in that respect, I want to say this to you. I want to encourage you to promise short and to deliver long. To under-promise and over-deliver. Do not be the people that do the opposite way around. The project I did in 2008 with the local authority, they were convinced that everything I said we were going to do, we wouldn't do. I think it was like we were going to do 5,000 hours of social action projects. And they were like, yeah, whatever. And in their mind, they thought, if we get 2,000 hours out of them, that would be great. Well, we did 6,000 hours. And they were so blessed by that as we moved forward in partnership, they wanted to do more and more together because they knew that the church delivered on its promises. So I want you to just give consideration also to this other factor, which is that we have got the biggest festival happening in July that we want everybody in the Northwest to have access to. So I want you also, as I come into land on my bit of the talk, to think about this. What does it look like to make a purposeful invitation? Now, this is different to sharing the gospel. This is about how do you encourage those people to come along with you to the festival. I think if you begin to think about that as part of your original planning, you're much more likely to do it. So if you've got a minibus, if you've got a double-decker bus, if you've got a coach, if you've got a fleet of cars, if you're booking Ubers, if whatever you're doing to get people there, you want to tell people about that. If you've cut somebody's lawn, you might want to think about, hey, listen, it'd be great if your friends and your family, or you and your kids or grandkids, came along as my guest to the festival. How can I help you to get you there? It'd be amazing to do hundreds and hundreds of projects across Greater Manchester, but a super disappointment if we then get to Wythenshawe Park and find out that none of those people who've been blessed by you get the opportunity to respond to the gospel when they hear it preached in a meaningful way and in a relevant way. So be thinking about what that purposeful invitation looks like. So, just to recap, what does it look like? It looks like prayer, it looks like proclamation, it looks like practice, and it looks like purposeful invitation. I hope that's helpful.